1991 looked like the golden age of cartoons. Doug, Rugrats, Darkwing Duck, absolute legends. But for every show that became a classic, a dozen others fell face first into Saturday morning oblivion. Because here's the truth. The 80s toy cartoon formula was dying, and studios were getting desperate. They threw everything at the wall. Eco-mutants, singing plants, rapping superheroes, hoping one would stick. Most didn't. Today we're digging up the forgotten misfits of 1991. The weird, the ambitious, and the gloriously bad. Shows that tried to cash in on trends, or just had no idea what kids actually wanted. If that kind of cartoon chaos makes you smile, hit super thanks to keep these stories alive and check the DVD links below if you want to see these lost oddities for yourself. Because this isn't just a nostalgia trip, it's a visit to the cartoon graveyard, where 1991's biggest flops are still haunting Saturday mornings. At number 1, Toxic Crusaders. If there was ever proof that the 80s hangover hit hard, it's Toxic Crusaders. Imagine walking into a pitch meeting and saying, let's take an ultra-violent R-rated horror film full of gore, mutants, and exploding heads and turn it into a fun, kid-friendly eco-cartoon. And somehow everyone said yes. Based on The Toxic Avenger, the 1984 cult movie from Troma Studios, Toxic Crusaders tried to clean up a radioactive mess and call it environmentalism. Gone was the blood, gone was the nudity, in came neon slime, puns, and moral lessons about recycling. Toxie, once a mop-wielding monster of vengeance, was reborn as a lovable janitor-turned-superhero with a message: keep Earth clean, or else. The show had everything Saturday mornings loved: wild character designs, an earworm of a theme song,
Crusaders, Toxic Crusaders, now the other boys fight against law,
and villains who looked like they'd fallen into a vat of Nickelodeon gack. There was No Zone, the guy with a giant nose who fought pollution by sneezing on it, Junkyard, a man fused with a dog, and Major Disaster, an eco-warrior plant man. Together they battled the Smugulons, intergalactic polluters who wanted to turn Earth into a toxic wasteland. But here's the problem. The audience wasn't sure who it was for. Kids loved the bright colors and gross-out humor, but parents took one look at the title and freaked out. This was the sanitized cousin of a film famous for exploding limbs. Not exactly bedtime material. Playmates Toys, the same company behind Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, had high hopes for the Toxic Crusaders action figures. They built a full toy line, even a Nintendo game. But the whole thing melted down faster than radioactive sludge in the sun. Kids didn't care about environmental satire. They wanted heroes with swords, not mops. Still, Toxic Crusaders deserves credit for trying something bold. It was self-aware before self-aware was a thing.
Okay then, I say we go straight to Mayor Grody's office and demand some action.
Okay, let's do it.
The characters broke the fourth wall, cracked jokes about toy sales, and slipped in surprisingly sharp commentary about pollution and greed. It even had moments that hit harder now than they did then. Like when Toxie tells kids that cleaning the planet starts with cleaning yourself. That's a lot of wisdom from a mutant with one eye. But in the end, it couldn't escape its own toxic past. Parents were confused, critics shrugged, and Troma went back to making midnight movies for adults who liked fake blood and bad puns. After just 13 episodes, Toxic Crusaders was pulled from syndication and filed away in pop culture's hazmat bin. Still, it's not hard to respect it. It took a literal trash fire and tried to make it sparkle. And in some weird way, that's exactly what made early 90s cartoons so charming. They aimed for greatness with a laser mop and hoped for the best. And speaking of cleaning up disasters, the next show took one of the most beloved musicals in history and turned it into a talking plant sitcom that lasted about as long as a commercial break. At number 2, Little Shop. If Toxic Crusaders was a bad idea made bold, Little Shop was a good idea made weird. Yes, this really happened. Someone turned Little Shop of Horrors, the 1986 dark musical about a man-eating plant, into a Saturday morning cartoon for kids. Because nothing says fun for the whole family like botanical murder.
Feed me. And I thought Seymour's head was stale.
The logic at NBC headquarters must have sounded flawless at the time. The movie had catchy songs. Kids love catchy songs. Except the original film was about a down-on-his-luck florist who feeds people to a talking alien plant that wants to take over the world. You can't just swap the word blood for fertilizer and call it wholesome. So the 1991 cartoon rebooted everything. Seymour became a shy teenager with big glasses and a heart of gold. Audrey II, the flesh-eating plant, was renamed Junior and recast as a friendly, rapping sidekick with a Brooklyn accent. Together, they solved neighborhood problems and sang moral lesson jingles between punchlines. It was a choice. The animation looked cheap, the music sounded like leftovers from a Burger King commercial, and the tone was so squeaky clean it almost felt ironic. But the strangest thing? The writers still kept the talking plant's hunger as a running joke. They just never said what he wanted to eat. Every time Junior licked his lips, parents everywhere held their breath.
Sometimes the truth not very appetizing either. Ouch!
Seymour, have you gone crazy?
NBC clearly thought they'd found the next Alf. That same mix of sass and suburban chaos. Instead, they got confused critics and kids who wondered why the plant kept rhyming about digestion. The show barely made it past a handful of episodes before being buried in the broadcast schedule. And by fall, it was gone. And yet, in its own bizarre way, Little Shop captured something very 1991. Studios were terrified of missing the next pop culture wave, so they kept sanding down adult hits until nothing recognizable was left. Little Shop was proof that you can remove every sharp edge from a story and still end up poking yourself. But hey, at least it gave us a singing plant who tried to rap about friendship. You can't say they didn't try. Coming up next, when Saturday mornings tried to get funky, and MC Hammer danced his way straight into the cartoon graveyard. At number 3, Hammerman. By 1991, MC Hammer was everywhere. Baggy pants, high-top fades, gold chains, and a dance so contagious it became an epidemic.
Hammerman! Hammer! Hammerman! Hammer! Whenever there's a crime, some crooks are gonna do time. They all better beware, cause the Hammerman will be there.
Every kid in America was trying to do the hammer slide in front of their TV. So naturally, someone at ABC had the same thought every studio executive has during a pop culture explosion. Let's make a cartoon. Enter Hammerman, a Saturday morning fever dream where MC Hammer fought crime with the power of dance. And yes, that's exactly what it sounds like. The show's premise was pure 90s logic. A pair of talking magical sneakers chooses a social worker named Stanley Burrell, Hammer's real name, to become the superhero Hammerman. Whenever trouble hit the city, usually in the form of graffiti gangs or corrupt developers, Stanley laced up those shoes, shouted, "Hammer time!" and transformed into a singing, dancing crusader for justice. Each episode opened with the real MC Hammer talking directly to the camera, hyping up the moral of the day. Stay in school, respect your community, don't let peer pressure win. Then the cartoon kicked in. A psychedelic explosion of neon graffiti, street slang, and moral speeches delivered through offbeat raps. It was well-intentioned, sure, but also completely bonkers. The animation looked like it was done during a caffeine crash, and the music, surprisingly, wasn't even Hammer's best work. He provided the voice for himself in the live-action intros, but the animated Hammerman, that was voiced by someone else entirely. It was like watching your favorite musician replaced by a bootleg version sold at a gas station. Kids didn't buy it, literally. There were no toys, no hit single, and no real reason to watch once the novelty wore off. Hammer himself was already on the edge of overexposure. Too Legit to Quit was around the corner, and Hammerman arrived just as his popularity started to fade.
The fire is pumping and the flames are burning. The books get cooking, let me get the tables turning. Stop!
Still, there's something kind of pure about it. The show really tried to use pop culture for good. Each episode tackled real-world issues: bullying, pollution, even homelessness. It was cheesy, sure, but it came from a place of genuine optimism, the idea that music could save the world. Unfortunately, kids in 1991 weren't looking for moral rap sermons. They wanted Ninja Turtles and X-Men. Hammerman only lasted 13 episodes before being quietly swept off the schedule. ABC replaced it with The Bugs Bunny and Tweety Show, which says everything you need to know about its staying power. But in retrospect, it's an amazing time capsule, a snapshot of how unstoppable MC Hammer seemed at his peak. For one brief, glitter-covered moment, he literally danced his way into superhero history, and then he danced right back out of it. But if you think Hammerman was the strangest attempt at a tie-in, wait until you hear what happened when one of the coolest movies of the early 90s got a new animated season without its stars. Because next up, we're diving into the Bill and Ted cartoon that broke the space-time continuum for all the wrong reasons. At number 4, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, Season 2. If you want to see how fast a franchise can implode, look no further than Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures, specifically Season 2. Now, the first season, it actually worked. The original animated Bill and Ted, 1990, had everything going for it. The same goofy energy as the movie, the same creative team, and most importantly, the same actors. Keanu Reeves, Alex Winter, and George Carlin all reprised their roles. It was silly, charming, and weirdly consistent with the film's "Party on, dudes" vibe. Then 1991 happened. CBS, in its infinite wisdom, decided to hand the show over to a new studio, Deke Entertainment. And with that one move, everything that made Bill and Ted work evaporated.
No problem, Ted. We will give these dudes an excellence makeover, go home, and watch Vamps and Amps, and then return them to the correct time and place.
The second season looked cheaper, sounded worse, and lost all the original cast. Instead of Keanu and Alex, the voices came from the live-action Bill and Ted sitcom that aired on Fox, a show that was already bombing at the same time. So now the cartoon had the replacement actors from another failed adaptation. It was like cloning a clone. The energy was gone. The writing leaned hard into kiddie slapstick, stripping out the oddball charm and time travel philosophy that made the movies so iconic. Bill and Ted went from endearingly dumb to just dumb. Their trips through history felt rushed. The jokes didn't land, and Rufus, once the cool time travel mentor played by George Carlin, became a generic side character who might as well have been a talking alarm clock. Even the animation had that unmistakable Deke stiffness, the kind that made every character look like they were running through wet paint. Gone was the colorful energy of the first season. This new version looked like it had been made by people who had never actually seen Bill and Ted. And here's the tragic irony. It didn't have to fail. Kids still love the movies. Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey came out the same year, 1991, and had a built-in fan base ready to follow the duo everywhere. But when they tuned in for the cartoon, what they got didn't even feel like the same world. It was like time traveling to a universe where everything cool had been replaced by off-brand cereal mascots. By the end of its short run, even diehard fans gave up. CBS canceled it quietly, and the series disappeared faster than an air guitar solo in space-time.
Complete concurrence, Rufus. She's awful.
No, I mean Missy cannot sing. Her voice could destroy the cosmic harmonics of all music forever.
Still, there's a weird charm to watching Season 2 now. It's like opening a time capsule from the last days of Saturday morning TV. Back when studios thought franchises could survive on name recognition alone. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventures didn't just lose its stars, it lost its soul. And in the cartoon graveyard of 1991, that's about as bogus as it gets. But not every flop from that year was bad. Some were just too good, too strange, and too far ahead of their time. And no show proves that better than the one about a green rabbit, interstellar war, and space fascists. Because next up, we're talking about Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars, the cartoon that was too weird to fail, but somehow still did. At number 5, Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars. By the time Bucky O'Hare and the Toad Wars hit TV screens in 1991, Saturday mornings were already packed with bright colors, toy tie-ins, and wisecracking heroes. But Bucky O'Hare wasn't like the rest. It wasn't just another turtle clone or eco-warrior spin-off. It was something far stranger. A military-grade space opera about talking animals fighting fascism. Based on a cult comic book by Larry Hama and Michael Golden, Bucky O'Hare told the story of an alternate universe called the Aniverse, where mammals and amphibians were locked in an intergalactic war.
Slaving for the likes of you, wart-bags.
Ooh, does the big bad captain think he's too good to join the slave pens with his brothers? Well, we'll see. Get me the air marshal.
The heroes were an elite crew of animal soldiers, led by a green space rabbit with the courage of Luke Skywalker and the swagger of Han Solo. Their enemies? The Toad Empire, a technologically advanced army that had enslaved entire planets with computer-controlled propaganda. It was sharp, stylish, and surprisingly dark for a show meant to sell toys. Characters got captured, planets got destroyed, and the villains were straight up dystopian. The Toad Empire was basically a parody of totalitarian regimes, brainwashing its soldiers through screens, which feels uncomfortably familiar in hindsight. There were scenes where entire populations were reprogrammed by television. Remember, this was a kids' show. And the animation? Genuinely great. The color palette popped, the action was fluid, and the voice cast gave it a real sense of cinematic energy. You could tell the people behind it cared. The world building, the sci-fi jargon, even the ship names all had depth. It felt more like Star Wars for kids who liked animals than a toy commercial. Unfortunately, that's also why it flopped. Kids in 1991 didn't know what to make of it. It was too complicated for the Saturday morning crowd, too violent for preschoolers, and too bizarre for network executives who wanted something simple to market. The toy line from Hasbro underperformed, and syndication never gained traction. Only 13 episodes aired before the series was quietly pulled, leaving fans hanging mid-war. Still, Bucky O'Hare aged better than most of its peers. Watch it today and it feels oddly modern, tackling themes of propaganda, military ethics, and technology gone wrong with surprising maturity.
To the righteous indignation! Hold your fire! You're burning fur here!
Bucky, that you? We thought you were captured.
The Toad Empire's use of mind control through entertainment? That's straight-up social commentary that hit before its time. It also had a cult following that refused to die. Comics resurfaced, fan projects kept the flame alive, and even decades later, Bucky O'Hare action figures remain a collector's favorite. In a different timeline, maybe one less ruled by Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles, this show might have become a classic. But instead, it ended up right here in the cartoon graveyard, resting beside every ambitious, overcomplicated show that tried to do too much, too soon. And that brings us to the real story behind 1991's cartoon collapse, the year when imagination hit its peak and the market just stopped believing. Number 6. The Forgotten Formula. By the end of 1991, the cartoon landscape looked like a battlefield of good intentions. Networks had spent billions chasing the next Turtles, and instead they got a lineup of shows that were too odd, too smart, or just too messy to survive. But here's the secret. Those so-called failures weren't a waste. They were the turning point. This was the year animation started evolving. Studios learned that slapping a toy deal or a celebrity face on a cartoon wasn't enough anymore. Kids wanted worlds that meant something, stories they could grow up with. Out of this creative chaos came the foundation for the 90s animation boom. Batman the Animated Series, Animaniacs, X-Men, None of those could have existed without 1991's crash and burn experiments. Toxic Crusaders proved that you could sneak social commentary into kids' shows. Little Shop showed the limits of sanitizing adult material. Hammerman tried to merge pop culture with morality. Bill and Ted warned that brand names couldn't save lazy writing. And Bucky O'Hare? It quietly set the stage for mature, story-driven sci-fi like Gargoyles and Beast Wars. So yeah, these shows flopped, but they also cleared the path. They were weird, fearless, and way ahead of their time. Without them, the golden age of 90s cartoons might never have arrived. Because sometimes the only way to build something better is to let the old world burn in glorious Technicolor. So what happened to 1991? It wasn't that these shows were terrible, most of them were just caught between worlds. The 80s were fading, the 90s were finding their voice, and the old formula of toys first, story later was starting to crumble. But looking back, that's what makes these flops so fascinating. They tried, they experimented, they took huge, ridiculous swings when everything around them was getting safer and simpler. That's the magic of the cartoon graveyard. It's not a junkyard, it's a museum. A reminder that even the weirdest ideas can be worth remembering. If this trip through 1991's lost shows made you smile, hit super thanks to keep these forgotten stories alive, and do check the DVD and playlist links below if you want to revisit the chaos for yourself. Because sometimes, the best stories are the ones that didn't survive Saturday morning. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.